Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for an episode of the A to Z BizLink podcast. And today we're so excited because we have our special guest, the CEO of LifeGuides. It's Derek Lundsten. Derek, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thanks for the introduction, Lindsay. I'm really honored to be with you.
Before we get started, I think it would be important, since you are fairly new to the Valley and some individuals may not be overly familiar with LifeGuides, would you mind just doing a little introduction about who you are and exactly what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Lindsay mentioned, I'm the CEO and president of LifeGuides, and we are a platform, a technology platform that matches people who have gone through a life challenge that could be, caring for aging parents, to your children, to a relationship. So people who have been through a challenge and are now past it and healthy and have some perspective to be able to share that experience and that wisdom with people who are in that challenge and struggling and really not quite sure how to handle it now. And so we can equip them with a sense of shared purpose and empathy, and then also provide real world guidance, practical support tips and resources to help them be happier, healthier, and more effective as they work through those challenges. And so that's really what LifeGuides does.
It doesn't matter who we are, where we are, what stage of life we're in. I think we all overcome and, face different challenges. So I'm curious, what kind of conversations are you having, or what kind of challenges do you feel like you're best able to help individuals through?
Yeah, so as you said, we have a phrase at the company that life challenges are inevitable. And to your point, it's all over the map. You can imagine with everything that's happening in the world, we responded quickly with the pandemic to challenges like, how do you work more effectively from home? How do you educate your children at home? How do you manage having to do both at home? What does it look like in your relationship and your communication with your partner now that you're home, right? So those are a few things of examples that we've done as a result of what happened with COVID. Even now, with what's happening this week with the protests and the riots, there's stress around that and the uncertainty in political discourse. And so we've created topics around stress management and outlets for people to express their anger if that's what they're experiencing, and being able to kind of vent and be given some techniques to manage that. So that's a couple of like real world examples of the present day. But then even beyond that, like we talked about, there's thousands of life challenges in terms of, the aging process, health and well-being, again, relationship support, auto accidents, disaster relief. I mean, it's truly endless. And the idea is that what makes us uniquely human, as your point, is how we handle those challenges, how we build resilience, and then the story and the lessons that we learn from those challenges and how we communicate them back to help other people along the path, right? So.
And to get clarification, are you traditionally helping individuals, or are you helping businesses work through these things?
It's really both. The big vision of the company is to help 1 billion people reduce their struggle and be happier within 15 years, right? So in order to do that, in order to quote unquote heal the world, it's a really big vision, and it's really all people. So it's really, anybody can use and benefit from the support of LifeGuides, and that's our user base. We also believe that in order for us to reach as many people as we can and to launch quickly, that by finding organizations, and it's obviously very clear now with the COVID situation, that what happens at home affects us at work, what happens at work affects us at home. We want to find organizations and leaders that know that that trend is happening and want their people to be their whole selves and to be the most healthy version and best version of themselves. And so they want to give this platform and service to their people to enable them and to give them the support that they need so that they can do that. And so right now, the people that are buying the service are organizations that want to create that healthier, societal, workforce. And then the users are the people within those organizations and their different stakeholders that will kind of evolve with us. So, but in the long run, it's everybody, right?
I do feel like a lot of businesses are jumping on board and seeing the value because, to your point, what happens at home comes to the office, and what happens at the office, goes home with them. And now more than ever, people are working from home. So there's really no difference between the two. And so it makes it harder to transition. So I know businesses that I continue to talk to, they are looking at, well-being initiatives, continue to find training and development. They often look to A to Z BizLink for some of that stuff, but even finding or identifying other organizations such as LifeGuides is definitely a helpful resource. I'm curious though, as you've had conversations with businesses, organizations, individuals, talking from a business perspective, whose role is it to initiate these conversations? Is it the HR? Is it the C team? Who really should take the lead on helping their people navigate some of these life challenges?
Uh, well, two parts. Controversial answer. It's everyone's responsibility, right? On one hand, and that's the beauty. So, any people manager, right, in an organization, can be an exemplar leader, what we refer to as a conscious leader, someone who wants to walk the talk and show that they care for their people by buying a service like LifeGuides or any similar offer that can help their people. But to make real change, it also starts, at least historically at the top, but we also recognize that there's this sandwich approach. Like oftentimes real change happens at the grassroots, right? Which is why it's everyone's responsibility, but it will happen faster if executives, CEOs, owners, heads of HR, chief people officers, and the people that quote unquote create the policy, right? If they are the ones that take an initiative and say, we recognize this, we value you, and we want to show it to you, and here's what we're doing. And not only that, here's who I am, and here's why I am using this platform, which we've had a number of our executives do that, then it makes it acceptable. It creates space for that quote unquote vulnerability to happen at a leadership level, and for it to be okay within the context of work to say like, yeah, I'm a human being and we have challenges, right? Like we have stuff that's affecting us in our lives, and that's what it means to be a human, right? And so it really is, I hope that more leaders take that stance. And at the same time, we push our leaders to be more aggressive, so to speak, or to be kind of more, out in front by the things that happen, through the organization. So
I think all great leaders have this desire or this mission to change the world. So as it relates to that, I would love to get your perspective on how can we as leaders actually make that happen?
Well, I think the one thing leaders can do to make that happen is to lead and to take action, right? So I mean, that's the first thing is oftentimes imperfect action is still better than no action, right? And I think that especially in the model before all this uncertainty has happened over the last few months, it was really easy to say, yeah, we're good, we'll figure that out later, or we'll address that when it becomes a priority. And now it's like, oh no, we need to address this like 3 years ago, because we might not make it through the next few months if we don't adapt and pivot and adjust real time. And so I think the opportunity, the permission, we're doing this series, you may have seen it, called Rebels with a Heart, the new rules of leadership. The idea is like, how do we create new rules? Like, how do we make it acceptable to quote unquote color outside the lines, to show our humanity to our people, and to allow for an environment where mistakes are permissible so long as they're in pursuit of progress, right? And the stance of judging perfection, that kind of moves to the side, and you celebrate people taking risks to change things for the better and collaborating for that purpose, right? And I think that's where we're moving towards, and I think that that's an exciting piece. And so great leaders are the ones who empower people to go out and do that, and to take the opportunity and support them, even if it's not perfect. I've had a number of mentors talk about, like, very few things are fatal, right? As long as you're eliminating the fatal mistakes, then you should have a broad view of how people can learn and adapt and adjust, because the experts in fields are oftentimes the limits. They create the barrier. It's the non-experts that come in and have a completely outside view of the world, that are not bound by past rules or structures, whatever it is, that change it. I mean, last week we had a private space company launch a rocket with astronauts that went to the space station. I mean, who would have thought that would have happened 25 years ago? And now we're on the verge of opening up an entire commercial industry based on planetary exploration and tourism. I mean, like, that's incredible. And at the same time, yes, we've got some very real challenges that are affecting us, personally, economically, politically, in our relations in our community. I mean, like, real, polarizing, complex questions that, first off, we need to see our commonality so we can talk about them in a healthy way. And at the same time, sometimes you gotta, people need to do things that really change and break people's patterns. And I think we're seeing a lot of that right now. And I think, you look at what we've experienced in the last 6 months, an impeachment, riots, a pandemic, and now we're on the verge of a depression. I mean, and yet we're still here. There are still people that are doing their work, and frankly, I still think we're going to be better off because of all this, in a weird way.
So I'm sure a lot of people are probably wondering, well, if I'm listening to this and on the East Coast, who is this Derek guy? Can he actually help me? Or are you only able to help individuals or businesses kind of within the Southwest region? Can you share a little bit more on that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question. So I'm new to Phoenix. I've only been here a few months. I moved from the East Coast. And the reason why we chose Phoenix is because this is where we've been building a hub of talent. And we believe there's a lot of exciting things happening in the Valley for why we chose this as our hub. However, we have clients currently all over the country, and we've already taken the steps as part of our launch plan to be international. We already have trademarks all over the world, and we're already starting to look at our recruiting efforts for guides and to be able to provide. And we have a couple of clients who are international that'll be looking at how we scale this. So again, you don't help a billion people without being international within short order. So while we believe there's lots of organizations and people to support here in the Valley, we want to help the world. I mean, that's truly the big vision here. And we want to create 1 million jobs in the next 15 years as well. And that's another opportunity that we're seeking to, really advance.
So for those individuals that are motivated and energized by everything that you've shared today, and they're interested in becoming a guide for you, what does the process look like, or how would they qualify?
Yeah, absolutely. So they should check out our website, lifeguides.com. And there's a section in there about become a guide, and people can also follow us on social media and see us that way. But basically they go in, they can fill in an application. We'll ask some questions about who they are, what's their unique life experience, why are they interested in being a guide, what qualifications, if any, which is not a requirement, do they have in terms of some people have received advanced education in different topics. But really what the base requirement of being a guide is that you're a healthy human being that's worked through the challenges, now able to share a healthy perspective on how to, empathize and relate to someone else. And so then we provide, after we take them through a interview and screening and background check process, we provide education and training, both initially and as an ongoing benefit to being a guide, to help people refine their interpersonal and practical skills that will make them, a healthier, happier person, but also employable in different ways. And so that's another contribution level of what LifeGuides is doing. It's more than just financial. It's about, helping other people, healing themselves to some extent, creating an impact in their community, belonging to a community of like-minded people and like-valued people, creating economic opportunity, creating, raising all boats, so to speak, right? That's really what we're doing. And so it checks all these different fundamental needs that we have as humans. And so it's definitely very much an equal opportunity. Who you are, who you come from, where you come from, no matter your background, your heritage, your belief system, your preferences, whatever it may be, everyone is welcome, and we want to create that healthy one humanity. So,
speaking of background, I'm curious, what is your background and how did you grow to become the CEO of LifeGuides?
Yeah, so I was one of the first angel investors in the company 3 years ago. And the reason why I did make that investment was because I believed in the vision of helping 1 billion people. I believe that there's a purpose for us all being here, and it's to be in service of others. And for me, it seemed like a really interesting blend of, for lack of a better term, a higher spiritual purpose mixed with practical business skills where I could add value and make a difference in people's lives. And so I loved that about it. And so then I was an advisor to the company and helped over the last several years before I stepped in operationally earlier this year to lead the business. Before that, I helped build another company in the software education and training space called Scrimmage, and helped build that over the last decade. And I've also helped with, starting and advising different startups and different companies in various industries. But there's a general theme around health, education, and well-being that most of my interests kind of align around. And then before my entrepreneurial journey, I've worked for different entrepreneurs, worked in sales and marketing and general management roles. And before that, when I was in university, I studied philosophy and psychology because I was very interested in, the question of why am I here? Why are we here? And how do we help create a better version of people's, purpose? It's been something that's motivated me from a very young age. And I feel like LifeGuides is a really powerful vehicle to, bring that into a reality. So.
You had mentioned those items that motivated you from a very young age. I'm curious if you were to rewind the clock, or if you could tell your younger self some advice, what advice would that be?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Um, be more patient with myself and be kinder with myself would be a couple things that I've learned. I did a lot of personal work on developing my own mindset, my emotional background, my skills as a professional. I did a lot of that work through my own kind of determination and interest and intention. I think that I would have also I would have been more focused in school as a younger person too, like being intentional about education. For me, I had a really hard time being in a traditional educational setting. I was all bouncing off the walls. I was a very active kid. And it was really hard for me to sit still for 90-minute sessions. So I kind of just checked out and was living off in dream world. And if I had known in hindsight or moving forward certain things that would have been helpful to know, I would have made sure I focused more effectively then. So it's a really, as I think now as a parent, how I want to educate my kids, I want to create a system where I can teach them how to use the practical skills they teach in school for their benefit without inhibiting their imagination, their dreams, and their energy to go explore, which I think is something they're kind of almost divergent ways of educating. And I think that maybe that's also part of the value of this whole situation is we're breaking down walls literally and figuratively on how we do things. And I think that's really exciting. And I think will benefit, our children, my children, as we continue to grow here. So.
Health and well-being is one topic that I know you and I definitely align on and love to talk about. And I'm curious, what advice would you have to local leaders or individuals that they should be focusing on as it relates to health and well-being, especially now as we're navigating COVID-19?
Yeah, so I actually had a question on this earlier too, and I referred back to, I've been doing some work with the Flow Research Collective and Stephen Kotler, if you've heard of him. And for the last several years, I've been really focused on how do you optimize energy, how do you optimize output, right? It's all about this cycle of, how do you maximization, and then you adjust and you actively recover. And so I think that there's not been enough education around that concept in the context of work. And I was saying this before, is like we've now moved away from necessarily a 9-to-5 work structure, and we've removed time as a barrier again to open it up. And so we can think more creatively and we say, when is Lindsay's most productive time of the day? When is Derek's most productive time of the day? When is John's most productive time of the day? How do we align our teams around their productivity windows? How do we create time for collective active recovery? And what does that have? How do we build our goals and our frameworks around certain milestones we want to hit into those energy flows? And how do we align incentives of all different kinds into that? And I think these are all things that are part of it. So coming back to your questions, what is it for leaders? One is really seek out answers on how to, quote unquote, break the rules or create better systems. Two, be willing to try them yourself and, frankly, make some mistakes or fall on your face a little bit and be cool with that. That's been something I've worked on in my life. And three, just keep trying, like keep adjusting, and keep including your people as part of that. Like, I think there's, I think that's this collective time that we live in is a really exciting period where we're going to be able to start really getting more from all different people's skills, backgrounds, imaginations, and whatnot. So,
as LifeGuides continues to grow and expand on a national and or global level, I'm curious, is there a specific group of people that you would love to get in front of? Like, what's your call to action? Who can we help introduce you to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to who are these leaders or organizations that really want to, demonstrate that they are caring and providing the right support in a practical sense to their people and their communities, and are willing to, go lead essentially. And I think those are the types of people, especially, that we are seeking to collaborate with right now. And as that continues to grow, I think it'll be all about creating partnerships with organizations that support those relationships. And that's the short term. So.
Everyone's business has had to change and adapt and pivot over the last couple of months. And so I'm curious, just for your team specifically, how have you guys grown or changed over the last couple of months?
Yeah, well, we've been, it's kind of hard to say, I mean, it's odd to say it, but we've been in the right place at the right time in the sense of we are receiving what the market has provided. Like it's almost felt oddly perfect that, people are going to need support. Their emotional health, their stressors, they're changing is having a huge impact on like, what does that look like? And so LifeGuides, has been building, and now we're ready to help those people in their time of need. And so, our response, again, to specific topics and challenges that have arisen, we've had to adapt to meet that demand, and prepare to rapidly grow. But that's been the biggest thing that we've been focused on is how do we make sure that we're supporting people and organizations through this time.
Are you guys seeing any trends, or, is there a direction in which you feel like conversations will start to go here in the next couple of months?
I do. I think that I was talking about this before, we kind of went into this sprint period where people went to the work from home, and then there was this kind of like, when is this going to end? And now there's this like, everyone's kind of, summer's coming and things are starting to open up, and people are suddenly taking inventory, and they're like, well, what does this look like? And what does this mean? And where do I fit in? And they're really taking stock of like, how do they feel and what's working and what's not? And I think it just opens up the conversation for, what's the next phase look like? This is that recovery period I talked about. We're kind of in that. And so like, I think that organizations should make a point to allow that to happen so that they can make another push from the second half of the year and create better standards, better rules, better processes, better communication, whatever it is that's sustainable over time. Right. And so that's what I see right now. And I think LifeGuides is a part of that toolkit.
You had mentioned some of your events that you host. Do you have any coming up that you think people should consider checking out?
Yeah, absolutely. So our events are completely virtual. Again, the Rebels with a Heart virtual conference series. We're running it pretty much every other week. And we have a couple coming up in June. You can find those on our website, on our social channels. And yeah, please join us.
So for those individuals that have more questions or just want to pick your brain, what's the best point of contact for you?
Yeah, come on, LifeGuides, Derek at LifeGuides.com, or just come to our website and our team can support you.
All right. As we wrap up today's conversation, is there anything that you want to leave our audience with, or anything that you want to encourage them to think about?
I just want to say thank you for your questions and really just helping amplify this message, Lindsay, and just to reiterate that we are here as a resource for your listeners and for the community to really have happier, healthier, productive lives. So
awesome. Thanks again for being here today, Derek.
Thank you.